StrongSide, episode 2. If you haven't seen episode 1, I'm going to give you permission to go ahead and pause it, go watch the full thing, and then come back with this, all right? And you're back. Hey, I'm Mike. That's also Mike. Mike Marshall, Mike Piellucci. Thank you for hanging out with us. It's Machine and Pie for shorthand, if you get confused on that one.
Mike Sr., Big Mike.
Yeah.
Those also work.
Make all the Mike and Mike radio podcast jokes you want. They're never getting old. We love hearing it.
Yeah.
All the time. Keep going after it. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for hanging out. Hope you're doing well. Number one, it seems like the whole Metroplex is sick or dealing with
including
something
us.
or another. Yeah.
Including us right now.
Yeah, my voice is a little wacky. His is a little wacky. So we're going to fight through this and give you a very good effort. We've got too much show today. So much show that we've deleted stuff already that you'll never, ever know about. And you're just got to deal with that. But let's get into some of it. We've got a very special guest, almost as special as our first guest.
Almost. David Moore. You care about the Cowboys in the city. You know who David Moore is. Used to write for the Dallas Morning News for a long time. Said he was retiring. Then he's not retiring. He's here. He's writing for D Magazine now. In addition to doing a bunch of radio stuff, he's been with us writing for a few months now. And we're going to talk about everything with this football team. Only some of it will bum you out. Just a little bit. Some of it will make you feel good. He gives you a prediction on when they're going to the Super Bowl. It's a little sooner than you might think. Sooner than I would have thought.
Sooner than you might think.
But you got to get there. You got to bear with us a little bit first. There are other things going on in the city right now. Machine, what's going on?
Let's just jump straight into hot topics. Why don't we? Stars, Mavs.
Ooh.
Oh, boy. I don't know if we have time in this show to get into every single detail of what's going on. But, Mike, have you ever had a bad roommate?
I've had a couple.
You ever had one you just really couldn't get along with no matter what?
Not one I sued.
Not yet. There's still time. So Brad Townsend, hat tip to Brad Townsend, the GOAT, for breaking this story yesterday, which the timing on it was just happened to be happening the same exact day that the suit got filed because the Mavs wanted a final answer on an issue that seems to be very big and very long-standing, and you wrote a fantastic piece about it. And you break it down for me, and I'll ask questions because I like playing the dummy on these types of things.
I mean, to be fair, I think I'm somewhat the dummy too. So credit to Brad and Leah, the Stars beat writer over at the Morning News. You should read their work. They're the ones that broke a lot of this, both on the suit yesterday from the Mavs suing the Stars, and now the Stars countersuing the Mavericks this morning. I think it's a very important context. I'm not pretending in the context of the column that I wrote to get into all of that, and I think you do need to understand it because I mean, this is the most durable partnership there's been in local sports. I mean, since the minute the Stars got here from Minnesota, these teams have been attached to the hip, first at Reunion Arena, now at the American Airlines Center. And it's been going on for a bit that the Mavericks are going to look to do their own thing. That's not really uncommon in sports anymore. More and more NBA and NHL teams are doing the separate arena things, unless they're under the same ownership group. Obviously, these ones aren't. But there's a way to go about this, and you shake hands and do your own thing at the end of the day. And then there's what this is, which is really, really ugly. So the long and the short of what's happening right now is the Mavericks sued the Stars for breach of contract. And what they are claiming is that in the original agreement that was set out when the American Airlines Center was built, it was open in 2001, but it was really being built starting in 98. Mm-hmm. There's an agreement in there that both teams had to have their headquarters or practice facilities in the city of Dallas. Now, for the uninitiated, the Stars have never had an office really in the city of Dallas, other than I think past the first year. They were in Irving, and then since 2003, they've been in Frisco. Both, that's where they practice. That's where their corporate headquarters are. This is something everybody knows. It's a very, very petty thing to sue over, but it's really kind of a means to an end, which is that if they are found to be in violation of this, the Mavericks could assume full control of the American Airlines Center. And they've acted as though they've already been able to do that, right? This is formalizing an action that they took a year ago in October 2024, when they basically said to the Mavericks, or to the Stars, you guys are a breach of contract. We are going to buy you out of essentially the corporation. What is it? The
Center Operating Company is what it's called.
Yes, Center Operating Company. Explain to the good people what that is.
Center. So, I mean, you have to film, whenever you share an arena, there's revenue created. You have to split it. You have to create a company to oversee that. And to, it's a shell company, but it's a company nonetheless that the money filters through whenever gates, hot dogs are sold, parking, things that the arena generates revenue from. The Stars get a share, Mavs get a share. And they were in this agreement to start Center Operating Company, that 1998 keep your headquarters in Dallas provision is in there. And that's the entire standing that the Mavs have. It seems like the city previously ruled with the Mavs on it.
Right. So since that happened, the Mavs have also taken all of the arena gate proceeds that are supposed to be going to the Stars and keeping it in escrow.
So crazy.
Which is a number that's, according to the Stars, that's tens of millions of dollars.
That's so insane.
So it's gotten really bad. Now, why has it gotten it bad? Because this is a really arcane thing to sue over, and it's a really drastic thing to take just for funsies, right? Mm-hmm. This all, if you, going back to the Morning News Report, goes back to last year when Irina knows that the lease between both teams of the AAC is up in 2031. There were meetings last year. The Mavericks and the city of Dallas believe an agreement was reached with the Dallas Stars to where the Mavs and the city would contribute $300 million to renovate the arena. The Stars would not pay a dime, but in exchange, the Stars would sign a new deal to stay in the AAC for 30 more years until 2061, and then the Mavericks would go do their own thing in a different building in Dallas.
Yeah.
The Stars version of events is we never agreed to that. We agreed to terms that would have had both us and the Mavericks here for 5 more years through 2036, and we would have gone 50-50 on any renovations. The city would have been a part of this. And what you're going to get when you read a lot of this stuff, it's a lot of they said, there is no middle ground.
It's a pretty big difference.
Wee bit of a difference.
Let's just pinpoint that, right?
Bit of a difference.
If I tell you I'm going to lease this car until 2035 with you and we're going to pay half, and the next time I show up, you say, actually, I thought you were leasing this car until 2061, and I'm actually not going to be here. That is so significantly different that it's borderline hilarious that they're that far apart on their understanding of what happened.
Right, exactly. So the Mavs version of events is the Stars backed out. The Stars version of events is that we got bait and switched. There's a lot we don't know. There's a lot we will not know. My one thing on this is what I wrote about it today for D Magazine over at StrongSide. I guess by the time you see this, it'll be yesterday's piece. My one thing is this. All that really matters is what the implication is. And the implication that's really interesting is the city made a choice, right? I don't know if the Mavericks are right. I don't know if the Stars are right. The city, very plainly in court filings, in documents, and what the Morning News reported, the city very much thinks the Mavericks are right here. And what that means is that we have gone from a world where everybody is speculating that the Mavericks might leave town to now, the Stars' actions in the wake of this, when the city is trying to get back to the table. Last month in September, the Stars issued some demands that are the sorts of demands that you don't make if you really want to negotiate. Stars demanded $400 to $500 million. This is per documents obtained by the Morning News, should say. They demanded $400 to $500 million of renovations cost from the city to the arena, and they want no rent. No city is going to agree to that. The Stars are not dumb. The Stars know that the city's not going to agree to that. The Stars, you say that when you feel like this partnership has eroded and you feel like there's nothing more to say. And meanwhile, here's the city of Dallas, who has very firmly sided with the Mavericks in this. And if you can't get the Stars to go to the table with you, and it's not looking great for their prospects of sticking around, suddenly you better keep the Dallas Mavericks in Dallas, because if you don't, you are the only major media market of your size not to have any of the 4 major professional sports in your city. The only one. And if you are Mayor Eric Johnson exiting Dallas, this is on you. If you are the new mayor coming into Dallas and both teams leave, that's the first thing people remember about you. It might be the last thing people remember. Ask Laura Miller what she's remembered for. It's the Cowboys and why they're not in Dallas. And so that puts them in a very, very tricky spot, because what do we know about the Adelson family? Well, the Mavericks have said they want to stay in Dallas, but a lot of teams over the years have said they want to work with the city only to not stick around. We know that they own land in Irving, and we know that the Adelsons, if you follow the state legislature and how they've tried to negotiate gambling into legalization in the state of Texas, which is a very big priority for them, these are people you don't want to negotiate against because they are ruthless and they have a whole lot of money. And now, not only are the Mavericks negotiating with them, the Mavericks have no leverage. Because if the Stars don't want to deal with them, and we don't have any indication that the Stars do want to deal with them right now after everything that's gone down, they have to keep the Mavericks, which means that whatever deal they can cut, if they can cut it, the rest of the people living in the city might not like what those terms are going to be.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the way that Dallas and that area of the city has survived for the last 25 years is about to be nothing. It's about to be sent to zero, because what has happened to the Stars, or what the Stars perceive has happened to them in this last October, meet and greet of, hey, we think this, okay, cool, us in the city are on the same page, and now you're here till 2061. Thanks, bye. That's their side of the story. I want to hear what the Mavs side of the story is, and the city's already sided with them, so it might not even matter what the Stars side of the story is at some point. And the Mavericks might have already been on the move to find other solutions long term. It seems like no one from the Mavericks side or anything that I've seen is committing to life after 2031.
Yeah.
And so the way that Victory Plaza, the area, Uptown, the entirety of that space has survived is by having whatever it is, 100+ nights of Stars hockey, almost said Stars basketball, Stars hockey, Mavs basketball, fueling that center. And they're building more stuff down there constantly, right?
Right, yeah.
Because it's actually turning into an area that you want to be in, and it's actually pretty cool now for the first time.
At least for the time being.
Ever.
Yeah.
There's a chance that it gets sent to zero within 5 years. And people start leaving before then, most likely, because you're not going to just sit there if there's no sports being played in the AAC.
I mean, we've seen, look what happened to now Choctaw Stadium across the street from Globe Life Field.
Mm-hmm.
They're just struggling to keep tenants. It's kind of a building that it's sort of a monument to the past. There's nothing really going on there. And there's not an entire neighborhood built around that building, right? Well, yeah, an entire portion of the city that has slowly been built up in a part of town that just is struggling constantly to keep people interested and attracted and convinced that this is the part of Dallas you need to be in. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a story that's bigger than sports right there, because concerts might come through, but we know that the biggest of the big shows will go to AT&T Stadium.
Yeah.
And if there are 2 other arenas in different parts of town that are newer than the AAC, that's a real disaster. So it's a disaster for that building, but it becomes that much more of a disaster if Dallas can't rally by getting some other new arena inside the city to say, all right, well, maybe we have to raise the AAC and worry about Victory Park later, but at least this stuff is in our county.
Well, and that's the only option the city has right now, looking at that reality, that very real reality that could happen 5 years from now, where you get sent to zero on a place that you probably invested already billions of dollars into. The only thing you have at this point that I see the path forward is to come back to the table with the Mavs.
Yeah.
And probably give them whatever they want for space, for improvements, for... Is there going to be a new space? Are we completely redoing the AC? What is this family interested in building and developing around it and across the highway and all the way up into Irving? There's no path forward for the city right now with what's been stated.
Yeah.
And I think it's so insane it's gotten to this point. And I know it's been a long headache, and it's stated a lot in Brad's article that the Mavericks feel like the Stars have held the AAC hostage. And yeah, that's the sentiment, and that's in the filings right there. But to come to this point where one of the teams that's sharing a building with somebody is withholding their revenue share from the building in escrow in a company in Chicago, how the hell do you get here, man?
Yeah,
This is so bizarre, and it feels bad because I know the Stars are fighting against it. They're going, hey, it's not your job to say whether or not this is something you can withhold revenue from. It's the city's job to say that.
Yeah.
And if it's in writing and it's in legalese and it's in there, it's in there. Maybe it shouldn't. I can look in you at common sense in the face and say this should not be in an agreement.
It's so petty.
It doesn't necessarily matter.
Right, and it's worth noting the Stars did, they have made an effort to move some form of office at headquarters here. It's not like when this was brought to them, they said, well, who cares? It was, okay, we'll try to rectify it.
They didn't reply LOL. But, it's to make the jump from you breached this tiny little piece of this contract to now you can withhold tens of millions of dollars
it's
from
wild.
Your co-tenant. The city, they've already decided, this is decided to me. This is done work. Like we can meme and turn around and go do something else because they've already staked their claim.
Yeah.
The Mavericks are on the right on this, and you are not. And now I understand where the Stars are standing. Like, I
Absolutely.
understand why they would not want to deal with the city moving forward. I totally get that. It's nuts, man. It's absolutely insane. And whether or not you think whoever's right or wrong in all this, like, no one right now in Dallas is going to think the Mavs are right about anything.
Yeah,
So-
that's true. I mean, pretty much every sentiment I see online,
Yeah.
whether or not you've read the story, and you could tell who's read the story and who hasn't read the story, it's unanimously the Mavs did this, or the Mavs did this wrong. And again, I don't know. What I do know, though, is that there are no real winners in this scenario, other than maybe the Mavs might be the one big winner in this because they need Dallas to go to the table. And if somebody beats Dallas's offer, then it's going to be for a really good offer, right?
Yeah.
But the people who are the fans, well, guess what? It probably means 2 arenas in 2 places where people are paying taxes.
Yeah.
Because an NHL team in the open market, cities are going to line up for that, right? The report that came out, so coincidentally from the Dallas Morning News, funny how that works, that a few hours later, they just happen to have the exclusive lineup that they are eyeing the Willow Bend Mall site in Plano. Well, Plano's a city that was in the 90s, the it suburb up north, and now it's Frisco. So if you're Plano and you want to snatch some credibility and power back, well, an NHL team would do that, but you're going to have to pony up. Well, who does that go on to? Taxpayers. Mm-hmm. If Dallas gives the Mavericks everything they want, which they probably are going to try to because they need them, who's going to foot the bill on that? It ain't going to be the Adelsons.
Right.
They can afford it, but they don't need to now. It's going to be, tax breaks? Absolutely. You want to destroy City Hall? Sure. I don't think there will be much off the table because they're in a really, really, really bad spot.
Yeah, and the relationship's always been complicated. If it's example of in real life, I had a roommate that got a job and graduated before I did, and he wanted to buy the nice washer and the nice dryer for the house, and he just did it and expected me to split with it. And I was like, buddy, I'm doing 20 hours of college work right now. I get to bartend like 3 times. Your numbers are different than my numbers right now. Congratulations on the security job you got, but I'm not making that money. So it's been that way for 25 years. NBA money is different than NHL money.
Right.
It just is. And so the frustrations of that with a new owner, with a lot of different changing hands on one side, from Mark Cuban out the door to St. Marshall out the door, I think these relationships and who was signing up, I lived a lot of similar scenarios where you didn't know who was saying yes or no on things.
Right.
And I feel like that's where the Stars maybe got frustrated is whatever happened in October. We're here till 2035, right?
31, but yeah.
31. Well, the Stars thought they were.
Oh,
together.
yeah. The new thing.
The Stars thought the new pros.
Yeah, right.
Well,
yeah.
Okay, no one got that in writing. Did you talk to that person? And
meanwhile, the Stars are an organization full of continuity, right? Brad Alberts is the president now, took over for Jim Lights. You could trace the line between those two guys for a very long time. Jim Nill, one of the most long-tenured and successful general managers working in sports right now. Tom Ghilardi's been here for 15 years. You know who you're dealing with the Stars.
Yep.
The Mavericks, a lot of the time, I think this is fair to say, even in the building, you didn't know who you're dealing with, much less dealing externally with those forces.
Yeah. The Stars need the Mavs way more than the Mavs need the Stars. The Stars need a different city if they're going to build a new arena. The Mavericks, it doesn't seem like they do right now because they have all the leverage.
Yeah, and it's the leverage maintained by people who know how to exert force when they have leverage.
It is some Succession level like mastercraft.
Yeah,
that they have this quickly gotten this much leverage in the arena negotiation situation. Like it's kind of impressive. Like I was like, how'd you get here?
Yeah,
because everyone that can read tea leaves is like, oh, maybe this is an Irving thing. Maybe this is somewhere else. They're not going to get what they want from Dallas. Now, today, there's a split. There was yesterday what you thought about the arena, and now there is today what you think about the future of the Mavs, the AAC, and Dallas.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
Yeah, it's a huge moment. And look, this lease is not up for 5.5 more years. We are going to be here for a while talking about all this stuff.
Yeah, and it's been happening way longer than people think. Like
it has, but now that it's out in the open, like you said, that's the moment where you can't cross back over the Rubicon.
Yeah.
But between people knowing what's really going on and then suits going in both directions.
Yeah, there's gonna be that's gonna get gross, man. You don't want this type of thing to get to suits.
And it just sucks because what is the last year of Dallas sports been like? It's so crazy to think about what it was, but think about Dallas sports in 2024, right? Rangers win Rangers come off a World Series win. Stars and Mavs in the conference finals. I was having people in different cities who were just like, man, what's it like living here now? Or just like, oh, these freaking Dallas teams again. Like this city was on top of the world. And then what's happened since then? Luka gets traded. Micah Parsons gets traded. Now you have this. And all of the negative all the headlines about this city in sports outside of this city are just, what the hell is going on in Dallas? What is going on right now? It's bizarre, and it's kind of exhausting to live and work through, because like all of the credibility that this city has had, all these strides that it had taken as a power player. I remember growing up, you're not even growing up so much as just being in college, right? The 2000s, when Boston, just everything was going Boston's way. Every sport, all the time, Boston was winning. And it wasn't just about the championships. It's if you were from Boston, you were the city that everybody was envious of. That's bigger than what these teams are doing. And that's what, that's what a lot of this show and this site that we run, it's about stuff that's bigger than sports. A lot of Dallas is about trying to measure up to other cities. And a lot of how Dallas has done that is through sports, right? This is legitimately one of the best sports markets in the country. And now you have this stuff playing out. And it's not good. Nobody's winning in this other than the Mavericks, which I suppose, maybe they're happy that way. Who knows? But they seem to be the only winners, and everybody else, a lot of other people are going to be losing in this deal, and it doesn't seem like it's going to be resolved anytime soon.
Yeah, it's going to get messier before it gets cleaner. That's a guarantee. I don't think the Stars have, countersuiting the day after is kind of like, okay, you have to do that, but this is going to be really bad for Dallas fans, and that's all I can think about, man. Because if there's some discovery, if people file certain things, like, that's why you don't get into these silly situations, man. You got to have good relationships with your roommates. You have to.
Let's do something to smile about. Mark Aguirre, jersey retired, joins Dirk. He joins Derek Harper, Ro Blackman, and Brad Davis as a fifth Maverick to get his jersey up there. Condolences to Jim Jackson, the other significant number 24 in Mavs history. How do you feel about this? Worthy of it?
Yes, he absolutely is. Just because it was a long time ago, it doesn't mean nobody can look this up or even look up the games. There's a lot of them on YouTube of, those first 8 years of Mavericks basketball from 1980 to 1988. He wasn't the first draft pick because it was Kiki Vandeweghe, and that didn't work out very well.
It did not.
But it turned into a lot of picks. One of those picks turned into Ro Blackman, which was great. But Mark Aguirre was the only other number one overall pick besides Cooper Flagg, prior to Cooper Flagg. And so there wasn't, I cannot stress, I cannot tell you, I cannot make you feel how dire and desperate and against this working the NBA at large was for the Mavericks off the top. The other owners didn't want this to happen. They made the agreement so poor for Norm Sanju and Don Carter that they almost backed out. Or most of the investors did back out. And then Don Carter said, you know what? I'll cover them. And it wasn't supposed to work. And Mark Aguirre is part of that. He's part of stepping into the ruins that was the first draft pick you ever took, didn't want to play here. Your arena, you can't have it, right? Because it's tennis all the time. Whenever the first playoff series happens, it's just thing after thing after thing without thinking about the financials of it. And Norm Sanju paying coaches and other team employees out of his personal bank account. I
don't think that's how it's supposed to go.
That's not how it's supposed to go at all. And Mark Aguirre was the best player consistently on those teams. Ro Blackman probably had a couple of years where you can argue whether it's Ro or Mark.
1A, 1B type thing.
Yeah, but you have to have somebody. You have to have a star. You have to have something to hang your hat on, something for fans to come out to. And in the beginning, before there was nothing, then there was this team, and Mark Aguirre was the guy. And they made it to the 88 Western Conference Finals. They introduced a really fun brand of basketball. And there's other, playoff series in there. But the Western Conference Finals 8 years in is pretty rad.
Yeah, absolutely.
For a team like that was first 3 or 4 years just compiling draft picks. Mark Aguirre was the guy. Whether he wanted to be or not, whether he wanted to be the leader or the face of the team, he was. And that time in building this franchise has to mean something. And I really, really like Mark Aguirre personally. That's disclaimer. I spent time with him on draft night. He's so sweet. He's so, thankful of what he's getting now that he hasn't gotten for, geez, man. Imagine sitting on something for like 20 or 30 years. And just
weighs on you.
Huh?
It weighs on you. And he is not, I admire the fact that he hasn't hid how much it's weighed on him. He's been so emotionally open about what this means, and it's really cool, especially here where it's been a hard year being a Mavs fan. It's hard year following this organization.
Yeah, and anything that gives credit to those guys in the Norm Sanju era of the Mavericks, I'm going to support, just 1,000%. And Mark Aguirre, it was a shame that his number wasn't up there prior to this, and I think it was organization felt weird about him and his end of his time here, which is so stubborn to say you're not getting your number retired and like hold that over here whenever Harp is getting his number retired and Brad Davis and all these dudes that they just weren't as good of players as Mark Aguirre. Didn't mean as much.
Yeah, I mean, that's the interesting thing about the Mavs jersey criteria, because I was debating this on Twitter the other day, and people were like, well, you can't just retire everybody's numbers. It's like, if you look, like, take the Cowboys. Now, Ring of Honor, they don't really retire numbers, right? But we all know whose numbers would be retired. You're in the Ring of Honor. Because it's such a historic franchise, it's the best of the best of the best. The bar is so high.
Yeah.
If you look at the Stars, been very, very selective. If you look at the Mavs, it's a total. There have only been 4 guys before Mark, but it's such a wide range of. You have Dirk, who's one of the 20 best players ever. You have Earl Blackman, who's multi-time All-Star. Okay, get that. You have Derek Harper, who's a solid role player for a long time. You have Brad Davis, who is up there because he was here first.
Yeah.
If you take those 4 guys in concert, you could justify almost anything.
Yeah.
So anybody would say, well, why? Well, I don't want Mark up there. Why not? Because on court, resume wise, he's clearly deserving, right?
Yeah.
When you think about who you want to argue next, like people say, oh, Jason Terry should be up there. Somebody says he wasn't an all-star. Okay, well, neither were Harper or Davis.
Yeah.
For me, I'm a very big believer. The one that always weirds me out is Finley, because they haven't issued number 4 in 10 years. They didn't. They told Dennis Smith, you can't wear it. Yeah. So they've already informally retired it, and he works here.
Yeah.
And I've always been a big believer that, look, I mean, from an on-court importance standpoint, but also there's a reason Dirk Nowitzki gives that man a lot of credit for how he matured as a leader and showing him the way to act. And also, Michael Finley stepped aside and got the message. Stephon Marbury didn't want to step aside when Kevin Garnett was becoming a thing.
Yeah.
Finley saw the writing on the wall, was like, it's his team.
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer that Finn should be up there too. You should put 4 up there. But yeah, I mean, it's so interesting because you could make an argument for about a half dozen different guys, and because the 4 that are up there now are so different and so varied and have such a different profile, you could probably justify it with this team in a way you couldn't justify it for the other 4 in Dallas. That's neither right nor wrong. That's just the context of what we're working with.
Yeah, yeah, and Mark Aguirre deserves it. That's not debatable. I think the thing that people have to see through is whatever they've heard previously about Mark Aguirre, and somebody telling you like,
he was difficult.
He was difficult, or like, oh, he didn't go back into that one playoff series, which I didn't even know was a thing. I've watched that series and I see him on the bench like rooting crazy in that game, and I didn't add it up. I was like, either he fouled out or he got hurt or something, and I didn't know there was an injury issue. And I don't know. That just sounds like a bunch of stuff that shouldn't matter.
Certainly not
40 years later.
Yeah,
it really shouldn't matter, man. And we need to celebrate the people that were great and played here and did it first and did it in, let's be honest, a significantly more difficult time.
Yeah.
Norm Sanju, anything that gives credit to his legacy and what he did here, I'm going to be pro. I think the world of that man. And I love that this is happening for Mark, and I love that, GMs and owners don't get their numbers retired, right? That's what the money's for. Yeah, that's what the money's for, right? Like, yeah, exactly. Norm's living a great life in upstate New York and has a great family, and that's his reward for it, right? But anything you can do to almost do that, and I think putting a bunch of his players in the rafters that he brought in and that he
paid personally.
He paid personally, and he had, he was taking stances on everybody. Like, it was, nobody really wanted to come here in the beginning. It was, I'm taking a risk on everything, and I've got to convince this guy that he wants to be here long term. And it was 8 years with Mark, or 7 years with Mark. And I love it, man. I'm super happy for him. I'm so happy that he's still in good enough health to appreciate it and to get to see it, man. It's really cool.
Right on.
Yeah. Another really cool thing is who's going to coach Paige Bueckers in the future, Mike?
Jose Fernandez, who, as far as I know, is not related to the late, great Marlins pitcher.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace. Look, I'd love to give you a real take about this, but here's the thing. This is the 5th Wings coach in the last 7 years. So
go through them, man.
It's the third in the last 3 years. This team has lost with men coaching them. They've lost with women coaching them. They've lost with college coaches. They've lost with pro coaches. They have lost with young coaches. They have lost with experienced coaches. So I can sit here and tell you that Jose Fernandez built a nice program at USF, and there's been consistent success. But everybody else had selling points too. This is a bigger problem than coaching. To be fair to the Wings, last year was the first step towards fixing that when they brought in Kurt Miller to be a general manager. That guy has skins on the wall everywhere in the league. You have somebody who has a track record. You have, I don't think we need to discuss how great Paige Bueckers is and that she's the queen and you could win a title with her as your best player. So maybe this is different, but it's hard to offer an objective take on somebody's coaching acumen when this environment has been this volatile. So for now, it's okay. Let's see. I mean, it's going to be a really weird offseason in the WNBA. The collective bargaining agreement is getting reset. The player movement could be just completely ridiculous. Don't really know who's going to be here next year besides Paige. So this could be a very blank slate. We'll see. But there's a coach. We should talk about that. But just know that if this person succeeds, it'll be because Jose Fernandez is good, but it'll also probably be because the environment around him is getting better too. That's what you should hope for. Not just this guy's a good basketball coach. I think we know he can coach ball. It's will this environment be conducive to success around him?
If you stay plugged in the slightest, you can tell that the league is having some pretty big issues across the board, and it's their time of reckoning for a lot of things, right? They're proposing new salary scales and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
For them, to me, there are a couple players in this league right now that can shine bright enough to overcome whatever. I mean, this does feel like Mavs 1984 to me, to go back to the story we were just talking about, where it's like we're just trying to figure it out and what works for everybody. And there's going to be some frustrations. It's not going to work great at some times, but at some point you got to stumble upon your Michael Jordan. You got to stumble upon your Larry Bird, that rivalry. You got to stumble upon your Steph Curry, people that define the league, that here's the boundary. Here's as good as it could possibly be. Caitlin, Paige, Collier. Like, I think there are some players, Asia. Like, I think there are some players that can define what it means to be great in the WNBA and bring larger fan bases in. And we have one.
Yes.
So we have to handle it correctly.
Especially because everybody, and to be clear, I don't think they've had a star quite like her. Even Skylar Diggins, who's a really great player, who is a very big deal. I don't think she's what Paige is in terms of significance.
Yeah.
But everybody before her has left.
Yeah.
Enrique is the only one who's stuck around, and with respect to Enrique, she's not Paige. Yeah. So whatever moves need to be made, it's got to be with keep her here and keep her happy.
Yeah. That's number one. That is absolutely
that's 1 through 5, really.
Yeah, it's not that different than Luka's rookie year once we realized, that's the thing we thought it was. It's my job now is to convince him that playing basketball as hard as he can on the highest level is fun. That means staffing. That means how we practice. That means changing everything about your organization to keep them happy and motivated.
Right.
And that's what they need to do with Paige now. And hopefully Jose Fernandez can do that. I don't know one single thing about the dude, but I wish him the best. I wish the last couple of coaches the best, and I really want the Wings to be good, and I want Paige to be one of those cornerstone stars in the W.
In Dallas.
In Dallas as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to get Dave Moore on here. We're going to talk some Cowboys. This will be a really good time, and we'll be back. Joining us now, the second guest on StrongSide ever, the newest Dallas Cowboys writer at D Magazine, but you know him in the market for a very long time. He's been here, he's been there, he's been everywhere. It's David Moore, man. How are you?
Who's your first guest?
Some German guy.
So, you've just given up on the show already?
Look, we're figuring if we start at the peak and we go to the bottom,
go down,
then
trickle down.
We are training the guests to expect anything in between.
Reestablishing expectations, I think is what we're going to call it.
Yeah. So now you have the baseline, you have this end, you have this end, and now anyone you bring on will kind of fit.
And then just come in and see. It could be anywhere in that spectrum.
It's like when the band opens with their loudest song and then the softest song, it's like, hey, this is what you're getting tonight. Be ready.
Yeah. But it's very cool having your D Magazine. I feel like there are a lot of people who don't realize that you are writing for D Magazine. They saw retirements, and you're not very into staying retired, are you?
Well, no. I will say my workload is much different now than it used to be. But no, I still wanted to, I still felt I wanted to tell some people's stories and kind of follow things, and just being here so long, just the institutional knowledge, which I think in a lot of media, really across the board, you're losing that a lot these days.
Absolutely.
You're losing a lot of institutional knowledge, and people can say, well, nothing like this has ever happened. Well, it probably did happen back in 1957 or so. Now, what relevance now? Are there the players still there? So I think you kind of make connections. And to me, sports is just about different entry points anyway, because people get different things out of sports, whether it's analytics, whether it's the competition, whether it's the stories of the athletes, being frustrated at the administrators and general managers, any of that. So it's just finding the different entry points, and there are just so many in so many stories to tell. And I just wanted to do it in a not as structured of a setting. So I'm loving this.
So when you announced you were coming out of retirement, I don't know if you saw this. It was soon after. Barack Obama said, it's fair to say that 80% of the world's problems involve old men hanging on who are afraid of death and insignificance and they won't let go. Your response?
My response is, I thought about that before coming back too. Because again, I don't want to be one of those guys that just, or one of those people that just like hangs on or, just what is a stroll down memory lane? It's just the saddest form of hanging on sort of thing. I didn't want to do that at all. But I will say what I've missed is just like, there are certain stories where, the conversation is ongoing, and I'm not in all of those anymore like I used to be when it was a day-to-day thing. But there are some I kind of like to pick my spots on and go with and think I have something to say. And plus too, I still stay in contact with the people I covered for so many years. I don't want to, once I get to the point where I drift away and it's just like, oh, let me comment on that from over here. I don't know that my voice will have anything to say at that point, So I think that'll probably be the time where
I thought that was kind of mean of him. A little pointed.
Yeah,
as a retort
and I did kind of take it personally.
Yeah. You should.
It's hard not to.
You should. No, man. Honestly, I was so excited. You can ask him whenever he told me that David Moore was coming on board. I mean, from our days, The Ticket, when we were coworkers, when we started doing your show, and just reading you throughout the years, man, you're great at what you do, and you do it the right way.
Oh, thanks.
And I think you get to the bottom of stories, so I've always appreciated what you do. So I'm very happy that you're here, man.
Thanks, I apprate it.
Yeah, I think everybody who's reading along so far knows you still got your fastball and then some. So let's talk about this dumb football team. We're not going to waste any time pretending the season is going well per se. But how is what we're seeing right now? How's that measured to what your expectations were going into the year?
Well, if I said that's why I got out because I knew it would be this way and I didn't want to do it again. I thought even before the Micah Parsons trade, I felt where they were. I felt the organization was too cavalier in taking the nucleus of a team that was 12-5 in 3 consecutive seasons, something they hadn't done since the 90s. I know everyone is focused on the postseason success, but you've got to string those 12-5 seasons together to put yourself in a position to have postseason success.
Right.
And to me, that's a big part of why this 30-year drought now of not getting past the divisional round has continued, is because, for example, before Mike McCarthy came in, take the Jason Garrett era. Mm-hmm. Never back-to-back winning seasons, never back-to-back playoff appearances.
Right.
Until they went those 3 straight years under McCarthy, they hadn't put together a string that long since the 90s. So when you're just in the playoffs for a year and then don't make it the next year, then you're back and you can go, oh, well, this team remembers what happened to them in the playoffs, 2 years ago, is going to be motivated. Well, the way the Cowboys churn their roster, That means 50% of their roster that suffered that playoff loss in 2021 isn't around when they're back in 2023. So it doesn't resonate because that nucleus isn't together. Yeah, a lot of the key players are, but it's just different. So I think I thought that was the biggest reason, tangible reason you could put on why they haven't had postseason success. And then just to treat 3 straight 12-5 teams and move on from the architects that put that together, I thought they were going to go into a down period before they, found a new culture, a new voice, a new way of doing things, and started building back up.
Always keeping just enough players to fill up the jersey rack for sales.
Yeah.
Somehow always there's
and high-profile guys.
3 to 5 high-profile players that can
Always.
fill out the Kroger's checkout stand.
Yeah.
With those types of players, and the rest are, disposable.
Yeah, and the other part is, and again, a part of that is, and that's part of the Jones operating philosophy, which is you're going to emphasize offense over defense. That's what fans want. That's more entertaining, and I think we'll all agree with that. I mean, if you're going to watch a team that is not winning in the postseason, you love these 40-40 ties and these 40-37 games, and
nobody's getting super
much
psyched
more
about,
than 13-10.
Nobody's getting super psyched about the Cleveland Browns experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what their close games are. They are 13-10. They're 17-14.
Right.
Much different feel. So you can at least gravitate to a team in a different way as far as pure entertainment, if not competitive satisfaction.
Right.
That makes sense.
Well, and I think
they've done that. But the casualty's been the defense, and you're seeing it again this year.
Yeah.
Because this is their third different defensive coordinator in a span of 21 months, third different scheme. They all look for slightly different things. And this team was drafted under Dan Quinn's template, which is not Matt Eberflus's template. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't really Mike Zimmer's template either. Yeah. And so you saw the struggle. I mean, just look at the deterioration of the defense in these last 2 years, how quickly it happened.
Right. And so lo and behold, and this is the piece you wrote today over at StrongSide at D Magazine, the Denver loss kind of laid this whole thing bare. Like, this is a mediocre football team. And I think the frustrating thing for people isn't that this year's team it's mediocre. It's that it feels like we are back in this place every year for the last 30 years where we're having to analyze. Every year starts off trying to sincerely analyze this year's team, but the bigger picture themes that you just laid out haven't changed, and it feels like they aren't changing, and yet we're sincerely trying to analyze this football team. How does the cycle ever get broken here? Is the cycle capable of being broken at this point?
Well, I really think to break the cycle, look, I think this franchise does have an offensive identity and how it likes to play. It's still a variation of the timing scheme. Most offenses came from either like the Zampese school and the timing scheme, or the West Coast Walsh, West Coast offense. Dallas has always been based in the timing scheme. And what happened when Mike McCarthy came in? He said, "Well, look, I would like to go to more West Coast principles as far as how you marry this with the pass protection, but I can't do it right away. And I've got to, the main thing is making the quarterback comfortable." Well, there are West Coast elements in this timing scheme now. And I think you're seeing it even more now with the blocking schemes that Clayton Adams has brought in. Mm-hmm. To me, the offense isn't a problem, but it's always come from, this is our core principle offensively, and we're going to go from that as we build the team. You haven't had a core principle defensively, because it's like, look, we're going to get an offensive coach in. Defense, this is an oversimplification. I'm not saying they're taking it to this point, but I do believe there is a bias or a perception in the NFL of, well, offense requires a level of sophistication and coordination that you don't need that same level defensively, because it's about effort, it's about motor. Mm-hmm. You can make up for assignment bust because you just get back and everyone going to the ball. So I think there's an inherent bias on they view offensive players differently because there's more. And it's like, oh, well, we'll get the defensive guys. We got to make sure we have the offensive guys, then we'll work on the defensive guys. But the problem is, they're not a 4-3, they're not a 3-4. They're not a cover two. They're not a man. It's whoever the offensive head coach wants to bring in to be his defensive coordinator because he has a relationship with them. That's what the defensive scheme's going to be. All these defensive schemes tilt toward we want more. They all want speed.
Yeah.
I mean, I find it comical when people are going, oh, well, he wants fast players. Everybody wants fast
I like
players.
that, and when every DC says, we're going to be very multiple. Yeah,
Yes.
no, sure.
Yes.
We're all going to be multiple.
Yeah,
We're going to play downhill. We're going to play with an edge,
downhill,
actually.
Yeah.
We're going to play with an edge.
Yeah.
But there are different size and templates. You know, for example, Dan Quinn wanted tall, angular guys at linebacker and the secondary with wingspan. Wingspan actually factors into how they grade players because he wants long arms, long bodies, disrupting passing lanes. But what happens? Well, you're usually a little undersized in the middle. Some meld it and go, no, you have size in the middle. We'll do size at linebackers and we'll do some, but they just, I would argue you go in there and you say, what do we want in an offensive player? I think everybody in the Cowboy scouting department and coaching staff, regardless of the coaching staff, will be on the same page. What do we want on the defensive player, this position? I think you'll still have a debate on, well, we don't grade a true nose defensive tackle that high because his value is not the same as these other positions. And but if you don't have it, then what happens to your other positions?
Right.
Where you don't have the run stopper on the end because you're leaning toward the pass rush. So, I mean, I think that's what they have to work through. I think I think if they would have established look, we're going to have changes here, but we're always going to basically have this principle defensively, like you see in Baltimore, like you see in Pittsburgh, some of those teams. I think it'll be a little bit easier to where you wouldn't have these wild swings where I think every team has an offensive or defensive identity by and large, and they're better at it. So whatever you're starting with, you want that to be a top 5 unit. And as long as the other side is about middle of the road, you can probably contend if you're getting the right players. Mm-hmm. But that's the issue with the Cowboys, right? Mm-hmm. They're not middle of the road. 3 of the last 6 years, they have been horrible defensively. They've been at the bottom of the league, and that's just too much of a lift for the offense to make week in and week out. I'd say possession in and possession out. And it's going to change the play calling as the season goes along. I think you saw a little bit of that in the Denver game.
And how many times on draft night do you see them get to whatever round they've slotted for a defensive player and the position coach comes in the room and Rod Marinelli is telling you Taco Charlton's the pick.
Yeah.
And then you're 2 years later and Rod Marinelli's not there.
We love TJ Watt, but he doesn't fit this scheme because we're more of a 4-3.
Couldn't figure out how to use him.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be any good here. And then that coach is gone, and the player's still here through 3 or 4 years, right? And they just don't have a home.
Exactly. Ozzie Smith's another guy.
Perfect example. That was the next one that I had in mind. I hate to pick on Michigan guys, but
but it's kind of happened here.
Let's stop taking those, Schoonmaker.
And that was a draft too, I think, and that's where I think Dallas generally has drafted pretty well in recent years. Although you look at their top defensive picks, they have not. Now the top offensive picks they have.
They hit on offense. They can figure those out.
But I think they've drafted pretty well. But it's interesting, that draft, I think they were a victim of their success because they went, well, we're late in the round here. Mm-hmm. We need a run-stopping tackle. Mozzie's last on the board. We know he's not a first-round pick, but he's not going to be there when we pick in the second. Mm-hmm. And then we don't like those other guys, and they're not going to be – they don't have a chance to help a 12-5 team get better in year one. Mm-hmm. I think the same thing happened with Schoonmaker in the next round. Yeah, I think they sat there and they went, well, on our board, there's a break. After Schoonmaker, we like some of these other guys, but we don't know if any of these guys are going to be able to step in and do the 2 tight end formation here early. So I think that draft, they were a victim of their success. They took 2 guys about a half a round to a 3/4 of a round early. Yeah. And then neither one is panned out, and now I'm sure they'll move on from both. They'll certainly move on from Mozzie at the end of the season.
Absolutely. So I have theories on, whether or not a defense can get better throughout a season or tighten up in any way, or if one linebacker coming back or a trade can fix anything. But, you've covered more football than I'll probably ever get to see in my life. So have you ever seen a team this historically bad on the defensive side and depleted of talent tighten it up throughout the season, or find some tricks, or find some footing to where they aren't the story out of every single game?
No. not to the point where it makes, you have to be a little careful, because those final 3 or 4 games in December,
different. Yeah.
If they're out of it, the other teams are playing are out of it, and that can become a hodgepodge and give you some fool's gold, I think, at the end. Look, they should be better as the season goes on, but when you're this bad, it's always incremental improvement. And what happens on a team that is as flawed on one side of the ball as Dallas is, you fix one issue because you focus on it that week. Let's say Dallas this week's like, well, look, we've got to get this run defense. Let's work on our gap integrity. Let's do this. Let's shade you here. Let's do that. So you spend all the week doing that. You get a little better on the run defense, but what happens in your coverage on the back end? Mm-hmm. There are just too many areas they need to fix. I always compare it to, if you leave your car out in a hailstorm and you come out the next day and it has 30 dents in it, you can go and you can get 10 dents fixed. Still looks pretty bad. And I think that's where this Cowboys defense is. Yeah. I just think there's just too much to fix. And I think they will have games like they had against the Jets, like they had against a Washington team without his top 3 receivers, who was also forced to playing an offense it didn't want to play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, that's a team let's load up the box. Their lead receiver's their 4th receiver.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Well, yeah. Now, we'll play man with them.
Yeah.
Because they're a 4th receiver on down. So we'll play man with them and probably get away with it, in this past week. It's interesting, though. People go, well, they use more man. Look what happened against Denver. They were in zone most of the first 3 quarters when they were getting picked apart.
Yeah, when it mattered, yeah.
The man was in the 4th when Denver was just running out the clock, in clock management. So this is still a zone team with a lot of corners who were drafted to play man and press. And that's just a different skill set. Yeah. Now, put on top of that, like with Trayvon Diggs and Deron Bland, 2 guys coming off major injuries, now they're playing, instead of being up on a guy and doing what they're most comfortable doing athletically, they're being told, no, you stand back 6 to 8 yards. You let the guy come to you before you engage him. Mm-hmm. So, new system that you're not quite sure about. You're coming back off injury, and you're trying to work your way back to where you were. It's just been, we've seen, this is like the perfect storm in a bad way.
Yeah.
Well, look, so I would say this is the part where we turn to the encouraging things, which the offense is, right? I mean, I think
sure.
Yeah, I don't think there's even that much to talk about. It's unassailably really good. What I'm curious about is we have a defense that's a disaster. We have an offense that's very, very good. We have a first-year head coach.
Best kicker in the league.
Hey.
Great kicker. Great kicker. How do you evaluate Brian Schottenheimer given what we've seen so far?
I tell you what, it had been a long time since he had called plays in this league. And I was skeptical that he would call a game as cleanly and have it make as much sense as it did as early as he has. I think his play calling overall has been outstanding. Like I say, any play caller is the victim of like a defense that is not just representative but drags you down, because you start making decisions that aren't sound because well, but if we don't score here, we are going to be down, and then we're fighting back all day, and we have to eliminate this from the playbook. And I thought you saw that in a few instances in the Denver game. But I think he's been outstanding how he's called it. I was chuckle a little bit early when he was talking about wanting to establish the best culture in all of sports, because there have been a lot of very qualified people who have established cultures in all different all different sports, and done a very good job of it. But he is a strong culture guy. I also understand when you have no head coaching pedigree, you have to sell yourself to the fan base and the players, and that's how he chose to do it. But early in the season, I think he's handled himself well on game day by and large. There are very few times where I sit there on a possession and go, "What is he doing here? Why would he want to do that?" You're always going to have that sometimes, but I haven't had it much at all with him this year. I think he's shown a pretty good command and play calling ability. I think he's aggressive without being overly aggressive. I think he does meld. He gets back to the run game when you need to get on the run game. I have no problem whatsoever with his feel of the game or how he calls it. In fact, I think I would say that would exceed expectations just from the standpoint it'd been 8 years since he'd called games, since he was his final year in Seattle before he moved on, He's seems that he has made some difficult decisions, some firm decisions. That was going to be it. I mean, when you're a lifelong, former player who's always been the good cop, usually in the good cop, bad cop scenario,
right.
It's sometimes harder to be the bad cop, but he doesn't seem to shirk from that either. So I think it's been a very encouraging start for him. And I think there's a good chance they go to the bye 4-4-1, and to me that's about as good as this team is.
Yeah.
If that happens.
Yeah.
All of us led you to write a very, very prescient column last week about how, hey, this team can't be deadline shopping. Don't get too high on this win after the Commanders game. Make some tweaks. Don't move that draft capital. Don't get too excited. I think people are starting to see where you're coming from this week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, there's just – look, this isn't 2016 when they identified we have no passing attack in the aftermath of Dez Bryant. We vastly overrated our wide receiver by committee approach and went out and got Amari Cooper, and they won 7 of their final 8 games, and then did go the divisional round that year. You can't identify one spot. You can say, yeah, you need more pressure on the quarterback, but you still have those linebackers behind them. You still have the safeties who's going to play safety for you. You have, is Trayvon Diggs going to come back at all this year? What level was he playing when he was here? So they just have, I think they can do it. To me, it would be reckless to give up any of the picks they acquired. But this is a funny argument too, because I see a lot of people going like, well, dude, have you not seen who they've drafted defensively in recent years? Mm-hmm. Why do you if you can trade those picks and you can get Max Crosby, of course. Yeah, if you can get Max Crosby. But one, I don't think that's going to happen. And two, as soon as you go, well, we have these picks. This is just like calling a game, right? Mm-hmm. What you're talking about, calling a game. Like, well, we have these picks, but we can't pick defensive players, so let's just trade them for veterans. Mm-hmm. Who are 4 years into their career, who we know exactly who they are.
It's early 2000
You're always
Mavs.
Overpaying on that. Exactly.
I'm going to let the league scout for me on this side of the ball because I don't know how to, clearly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know if that's a great philosophy or not.
I say that's a horrible philosophy. If you feel that way, go maybe hire some personnel people who have a better eye for scouting defensive talent.
That's a great call.
Get some consistency in your defensive scheme and what you want in a player.
And that's really it.
And that's it. That's what they have to do, which in my mind they haven't done. So, and look, and you can say that, but they hit on Parsons. They would hit on either one of those corners they wanted there. Mm-hmm. They hit on Diggs for a second-round pick. They've hit on guys, but Bland is a fifth-round pick. So they have hit enough. But this rotating, let's spend our second-round pick every year on the next DeMarcus Lawrence defensive end isn't working for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
Ezeraku may. I think Ezeraku
he can
may.
play.
Promising. It's
he can
promising.
play.
Nealon and Sam Williams certainly have not.
No. Well, you mentioned Trayvon Diggs. You might as well go there. Last week at the show, we talked about how everything about this concussion started looking a little fishy, and now it's looking fishier, and it's getting ugly. He's on IR now. There's talking he needs surgery. There's references to conditioning in the knee, which clearly are bigger than whatever incident happened in his home the other week. Do we see Trayvon Diggs again as a Dallas Cowboy?
I think you will, because I think he needs to, after 2 injury-riddled seasons, he needs to come back and perform to establish a market for himself that he would at least halfway would like going into the offseason. He's not going to be back with the Cowboys next year, but I didn't think that going into the season. I thought it was pretty clear this was going to be his last season here. They could get out from under the bulk of the contract. I think the dead money's only 5.8 at the end of this year, and so they will do it rather than tie themselves to it. But, and the fact no one will talk about how he got the concussion is still very interesting to me.
As was that Jerry quote about, well, I know what he said happened, but sometimes we're not very accurate about seeing the things that happen to us. That's a very not great way to help your player out.
This is a little bit like when Des Bryant missed games because he was cut his finger while cutting carrots for a soup, sort of thing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I imagine this will be some other sort of home incident comparable to that. But I was also told when he did go on the injured list on Friday, I talked to some people and reached out on the concussion. Everyone has said, not touching that, not touching that. You have another question? Ooh. I said, well, yeah, and they said, this is his right knee. The reason he's on IR right now is because of his right knee, which was from 2 years ago. It wasn't last year's knee. It was the ACL from 2 years ago. His right knee's really been bothering him. It's been impacting his performance. Goes back to what we talked about earlier. Impacting your performance with the new scheme. Mm-hmm. One you feel doesn't fit you. You're upset with how you're playing because it's not up to your individual standards. It's a lot easier to blame the system than it is, I'm just not back physically. Mm-hmm. But I think you watched him move this year. It was clear he wasn't back physically. And I think this is just the last gasp attempt on the club to say, look, let's just reset this thing. 4 weeks. Don't worry about performing. Just get your body as right as you can. The system is what the system is, but get your body right and finish this out, and it'll be best for you and best for us. Mm-hmm. So I think I'm in the minority. I do believe he'll come back and play this year. And I think where they are, I think they need him to come back and play too. Now, you can say, you're moving on from him. Why do you want to see him anymore? Well, you still want to be competitive in games. You don't want a total give-up mentality on defense. So he would come back and play, and I think he would have something to play for. He'll be playing for himself in the open market come February and March. So that's why I think he'll be back.
So I know you can't trade a bunch of picks and fix this thing, or I don't think that's prudent, but you got to start building a respectable side of the ball over there at some point. To do that, I like to look at what we did wrong previously, because that's usually something that the Cowboys do. They're pretty reactionary. Yeah. If we just did this thing, if we just paid a running back, won't do it for the next 5 years, then we'll forget. Mm-hmm. So where would you say that side of the ball got off the rails? Maybe 1 or 2, 3 decisions. Obviously, the Micah thing is what it is. That's him getting disgruntled can always be number one on that. But the other missteps that they did this offseason or even years prior that led to right now?
Well, I'll say if you're going back to making it the fabric of your team and some continuity on the defensive side of the ball, I've really come to believe over the last 5 to 6 years, I maintain that they undervalue that one defensive tackle and the safety more so than they should. I think they're so concerned about filling out the other positions, and there's a higher talent quotient required on those positions, to get it done, that they focus on that, and they'll keep throwing numbers at that and just go, okay, well, I can see this defensive tackle fitting in our scheme. But what happens is if you have good outside pass rushers, but you don't have any interior push, offenses can stop that. And why do you have so many offensive guards in the league right now? Because suddenly you had all these Aaron Donald type defensive tackles just disrupting games from start to finish. The way they have undervalued that system, in my mind, has trapped them a little bit into the, well, we have to be a front-running team. We have to get, we're going to build our team to get ahead 21-10 and then just unleash speed on the quarterback and go at him, and that'll minimize our lack of run defense. But I think the pendulum has swung back enough, and you've seen it with running backs really in the last 2 years, the impact of running backs on the league. And it's always a pendulum. But I think they built their team going, you know what? We've got to be good in nickel. We've got to be good in dime. We got to rush the passer. That takes precedence over stopping the run. We'll make that work. And the best way to stop a run is to be up 21-10 and just take it out. And they saw other teams saying, not really having much of a run game and getting away from the run game early. I mean, this was all happening when all the passing trends were going up to, you go from look, a balanced offense in the NFL today isn't 50-50. It's about 65-35 is true balance in today's NFL. Now, it'll swing depending on the game, and you massage those numbers in the fourth, but that's what it is. But I think that's changing a little bit now. I think you're starting it to see go back. I bet it's about 60-40 now, and it's kind of going in that direction. And what happened is all these teams have running backs, and now they can run on you if you just don't care about run defense. And Dallas has been in that position. To me, that's why Dallas has 3 of the worst defenses over 6 seasons. The run defense wasn't all that good when Quinn was here either. But they got up and they were able to play a certain type of defensive game until the playoffs hit. And then those teams are balanced on the offensive side of the ball and go, well, yeah, I would rather pass against them, but we can run against this team, and they can't stop it. So we're going to go run. So they've been built to stop passing games but not running games, and they've got to be able to do both. Every defense does in this league, I think now. So that's it. That's more of a core issue, right? Personnel, I really think they have some good personnel people in place, and look, I know he's no one's favorite right now, but they need to decide right away, is Eberflus back or not? Yeah. Do we want to cover this? Do we want to do this cover 2, cover 3? We're going to be a cover team. We're going to be a man team. What are we going to be? And that's where Schottenheimer needs to stand up and go, I'm fine with Eberflus, or no, that's not that defense is not going to work with how we're playing offensively. We need this from the defensive side of the ball.
Do you think he has the clout to actually be able to do that and be listened to?
I think I find this interesting too, and a lot of people don't believe this. I think one of Jerry Jones's faults as a general manager is that he'll bend over backwards for a head coach early in his tenure and give him anything he wants until proven otherwise. And then, the guy, the Jones always has the control, but it's like, if my head coach is in here fighting, saying, no, this is what he wants, and you know what? I like the culture he put in place this year as a first-year head coach. I like the way he calls games. If Brian Schottenheimer is this adamant this is what he wants on the defensive side of the ball, let's give it to him. I think could Schottenheimer have that same voice and that clout back in February when they named him head coach? No. But I think he's performed well enough early here and has impressed the Jones family enough where if he stood on the table and said, this is what I want, this is what we need defensively, I would be very, very surprised if the Jones family didn't go, okay, yeah, we'll do that.
So obviously we'd really like to make the playoffs. not too hopeful at this moment. So what is there left to achieve? What goals can we put on the board that we can feel good about going into the Cowboys offseason ahead of us?
Well, on the defensive side of the ball, since we've picked on that side, and justifiably so, you would like to see Bland get back to where he was before the injury. You've seen flashes, but he hadn't been the same consistent player he was. You'd like to see that because that's going to settle one of your corner positions, which is pretty big. You'd like to see at what level Overshown performs when he comes back. You're still a little hesitant in holding your breath there because of the two different injuries.
They're not.
But
The way they're talking about him, they're not.
That's the other thing, too. They may be putting a little too much on that. But because he's a guy will allow you to play different ways defensively, too. Mm-hmm. You can use him in different ways, and he would be a very attractive guy going forward. You'd like to see, you've seen it these last two games, and I would imagine it'll continue. You're actually seeing – you saw pretty much even distribution among all the defensive ends early. These last two games, Ezeraku's starting to get more snaps in the other ends. And you're starting to see, to me, he's flashing a little bit. You're starting to notice him in games and see, there could be a little something here. So you want to see that. I will say, I've always liked Oso Digizua. I haven't seen him do much this year.
Yeah.
Fair. Now, it's because of who's around him or whatever, but, they went out there. Look, that's an example. They went out of their comfort zone and spent money at that position because they had a new coordinator coming in Eberflus, and that 3-technique defensive tackle is huge in the Eberflus scheme.
And on top of that, you bring in Kenny Clark, who theoretically can soak up some bodies in front of him, free him up for more single teams. Yeah, that's where he should be making some of this money.
Yes, no question. Those two guys working off of each other, you would have expected to see more. Mm-hmm. I understand it when Mozzie was in there or Toya, but now that Clark's in there, I expected Oso Digizua to respond in a more positive fashion from a production standpoint after that trade, which I haven't seen. So you'd like to see that because you made a long-term commitment to him, and you want him to be, the part in there. Offensively, I think you feel pretty good. You want to see what Booker looks like at the end of the season. They should get Cooper Beebe back this week and finally get the offensive line they envisioned together. And, the coaching staff would love to see them play out the rest of the season to see exactly what they have there and develop that. You have the biggest question is Pickens, how you're going to handle Pickens going forward. Do you sign him? Do you franchise him? If you franchise him, the dynamic's going to be different than what it is this year when he's playing for the big contract. Are you committed? Nope, we're putting the money on that side of the ball. We're going to build up the defense through the draft and just selectively sign some guys now that we're out from under Diggs and Parsons. And, you have to decide on Javonte Williams, and it's like, okay, we'll give you $8 million, but we're not going to pay you like the top 2 or 3 back in the league at your age. So now do you finally use that draft pick? But, I would argue now that you have this running scheme in place, you probably feel a little bit better about, okay, we know we're going to use this blocking scheme. Because even if Clayton Adams went, my guess is Riley would keep it in, and they would elevate him. So, but that's a decision too. Do we just want to sign Williams for another year, or do we finally want to get our back this year? But if we get a back the first 2 days, that's a defensive starter we're not going to get. Yeah. So how do we out? So to me, your decisions on the offensive side of the ball are business. Are we going to sign this guy because do we want to keep this draft capital open for defense? On defense, you're just going through and you're picking the few guys that you feel can be a part of this thing going forward, that you're confident are part of this thing going forward. And I don't think there are a lot of those now.
That number's small. I mean, you get past 5 or 6 guys, I'm not confident they need to be here long term.
That's a pretty big overhaul.
Yeah.
And you did that the first year with Quinn. 6 of your first 7 picks, and I think you brought in 11. Yeah, 6 of your first 7 picks, and with free agency in the draft, you brought in like 13 players to throw at the defense in the first year, and it made a dramatic difference.
Mm-hmm.
But they hit on just about all of them, right?
Yeah.
You know,
that was a pretty high hit rate on that. Okay, so before we do some rapid fire questions, I feel like I know you're Mr. Cowboys nowadays, but there was a time in your career when you were Mr. Maverick, and you covered the Mavs for a long
way
time.
back, yeah.
Obviously, you saw the news about
Their first playoff team. Thank you. Way back then.
About the Mavericks committing to retiring Mark Aguirre as number 24. I'd never known the full story of the ending of him being here and all that kind of stuff. I just saw the cool videos from him getting drafted in 81 and knowing how good he was for a franchise that had absolutely nothing going for them for a long time. So I guess feelings about the jersey retirement and any fun Mark Aguirre stories that you might have up your sleeve.
Yeah, I have a few. Happy for him. You know, I think he, you know, it's funny when you talk about problem athletes in sports today and you talk about them being bad boys or difficult to deal with, you look back on the issues that Mark Aguirre presented for the Mavericks in the 80s, it doesn't compare. Mm-hmm. I mean, my thing on Mark was, and there are other outstanding athletes like this too, he was clearly the most talented guy on the team, but he wasn't a leader and didn't want to be one. And I think that shows up even more in basketball than it does in the other sports, because one guy hasn't. I mean, if you're averaging 25 and 10 a game, you're expected to be the leader whether you are or not.
Yeah.
You know, temperamentally, not everyone can handle that. And I think Dick Motta, the coach back then, was basically everything what he did in coaching Mark was, you've got to be a leader. We've got to toughen you up mentally and temperamentally to lead this team because your talent warrants and justifies that. And Mark always balked at that and just wasn't comfortable in that role, which is why he was so wildly comfortable when he went to Detroit and helped them win a ring, because he didn't have to. He wasn't the reason they won or lost every single night like he was in Dallas. You could take his good games and go, wow, that guy's really good. When he had an off game, they could still win because the talent, you know, there were two guys that were, you know, arguably more important to the team's success in front of him. So, but it came to an end, and this is why there's a split. People always question his desire and intensity in big games, and in the playoff series he hurt his finger and didn't come back in when they still had a chance to win. They lost, and he kind of wore, right or wrong, that loss. You know, it's interesting because you go back, like he never really recovered from that, I think, with Dallas fans at that time.
88 Western Conference Finals?
Yes.
Okay, Lakers, yeah.
And now, like you say, now most fans don't even know about that. And they don't understand, like, well, it makes no sense that Aguirre was fun to watch. He was a good guy. I mean, why isn't he, his jersey's retired? Right. Well, it's because of that and a few other examples as well, like I give. I don't want to, but one of my, I'm happy for him. You know, he felt ostracized too. He felt like he wasn't wanted around the organization, and no one really made much of an effort. And then that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Yeah. So like when Derek and Harper and Roe Blackman, when they have their jerseys retired and Mark's invited back, he doesn't go. And it's like, oh, well, he wants nothing to do with us. But I think Mark was like, they don't really want me there.
Yeah.
You know, not Derek and Roe specifically, because they did, but the organization.
Yeah.
But then Derek and Roe were like, well, man, what, you know, look, I understand you have problems with the organization, but we were teammates. Or, you know, so it just, I'm glad to see all of that being resolved now. One of my funnier ones, because again, the way he left and he goes to Detroit, and then so I'm still covering the NBA then, and so before he comes back to Dallas, I go out to Detroit to do like a big feature on him. And I've talked to everybody at this point. I've talked to like Chuck Daly, Isaiah Thomas, Joe Dumars, you know, everybody. And And I've talked to Mark as well. And so it's like the last day I'm going to be there before I leave to come back to write, and I'm there at the game. And the one guy I hadn't talked to is Bill Laimbeer. And so Mark's in the training room, and so I go over to Laimbeer and ask him if I can, talk to him for the story. Laimbeer goes, Mark, you hear what this SOB wants to do? Here's this guy that ran you out of town. Now he's coming back here trying to kick your butt. And, what do you want me to do to him? You want me to throw him out? What do you want me? And he's just like, he's like dog cussing me in front of the locker room, and all the players are looking over, and Mark just goes, and Mark could have played in on it, and Mark went, no, man, David's cool. You can talk to him.
Nice.
And this is about what I thought a Bill Laimbeer interaction would be like.
Well, he wasn't that way, but he became that way. And but this is more me than Mark. But then he went, okay, what do you want? And I said, no, I'm good. And turned around and walked out. And after I walked out of the locker room, like Dumars came out of the locker room and said, that was great, man. That was hilarious.
You played it right. Yeah, I think it's like almost a lesson in like generational trauma of like if you don't tell people what the actual issue is and you just leave it to vagaries of just the Mark Aguirre situation at the end, then the next generation of Mavs fan just thinks like he's on the outs and he must have done something really bad. And even the people working there, we didn't understand
exactly
why Mark Aguirre wasn't around. Mm-hmm. And I asked for years.
Yeah.
And I said, what did this guy do that was so bad to everybody? And I just couldn't get answers. And I said, hey, okay, we got to embrace him at some point.
Yeah.
Like, get over it.
He's a very personable guy.
Yeah.
I mean, look, not everyone is a leader. And again, the worst thing you can do is try to be a leader when you're not.
Yes.
That creates issues.
Fake leadership
Mark
is the worst.
Mark never tried to be a fake leader.
Yeah.
Mark was just, I just want to go out and play, man.
Yeah.
Just let me play.
And bringing him back for the draft on draft night.
Yeah.
And just showing him that everybody still loves him and they still remember him.
Yeah,
and
that was a big step.
Whatever the issue was, it's forgiven, man. Like, it's a million years ago. Like, he had a breakdown. He was.
Oh, my God.
It's sobbing.
And let's say difficult year for the Mavericks organization. Mm-hmm. Him coming back into the fold is maybe the only really good feels-good story besides Cooper Flagg. I mean, it's But to your point about lack of institutional knowledge and what happens when it leaves, it becomes a game of telephone where the people who are here in 2025 are not here in the 80s, and so when you lose the people who were around, it just becomes this sort of apocryphal thing. To Mike's point of, I guess he's not around. It's really just more nobody's around to correct the record because those people have been turned over several times in their roles.
Yeah, exactly. They don't know. Yeah. It's not a mean-spirited or a vendetta by anybody. Mm-hmm. It's just like, well, I kind of followed it peripherally back then. And see, like that, if that in and of itself was the only thing, like I said, he never recovered from that. Scottie Pippen had the migraine and came back and won another title, so he recovered from that.
Right.
I would argue that was worse than what 3
more rings can fix a lot.
Yeah, exactly. But there were other examples of Mark taking himself out of games periodically in key moments where. There was enough. That wasn't the only time it ever happened. That was the signature moment, if you will. Mm-hmm. But there were other times. But again, you don't remember all that. You don't know all that. Yeah. I mean, and like I said, just that in and of itself, I would go, yeah, but I'm sure he was hurt. And I mean, you had the whole thing with, remember Dirk early in his career. They wanted to send him back in the game against San Antonio. And that created a huge rift between like Don Nelson and Mark Cuban and everybody, because it's like, well, no, I'm not going to put this guy at risk. Mm-hmm. Cuban and all these guys went, no, Nelly, this is what you do. You just, you're afraid of win too. You're afraid to go for it in the big moment. So it created this, it created an issue that in and of itself you didn't know it would create. But I bet very few people know that story either about early in Dirk's career and how that created quite a split at the top of the organization that led to some other fallout later.
Yep. You ready to go turbo?
Yeah, let's do some rapid fire before we get you out of here. Most electric cowboy you've ever covered?
So I'm sorry.
Most electric cowboy you've ever covered?
I was going to say Randy Moss, but he was actually on the other side of the field that day.
that counts. That counts. Yeah.
Tony Dorsett, when he was there. There were some Tony Dorsett runs that were pretty special.
Story that you've gotten most wrong.
Ooh. You know, there are probably some others. Later, it's Travis Frederick when he wasn't in training camp, and I knew something was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew it was more significant than anyone was saying, but I couldn't get in. I poked around and I got some information and put it together, and I thought it connected, but it really didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wrote a story about his health,
Mm-hmm.
and it was wrong. It wasn't Guillain-Barré syndrome. And so then he came out like 2 days later and said what it was and how he wasn't going to play that season, and he did the big group setting. And I went up to him and apologized. And I said, I'm sorry. I didn't, from what I told, I pieced this together wrong. No one but and he was very nice. And he actually said, well, I knew if you got it wrong, I needed to come out. I knew there was going to be stuff that was even more way off base. And I needed, he said,
Yeah.
So it was very gracious of him to say, yeah, you were wrong, but don't, I was making sure it didn't get out.
Yeah.
The other one time very quickly was, this is a small thing, but it was like during the Mavericks' first playoff run where they lost, and they were playing a game in Phoenix, and I wrote about how like Jerry Stackhouse, it was one of those games that went into like overtime, and you already write your story, and then overtime happens, or it changes the whole story, and you don't have time to go back through and change everything.
Scott Murray coming up a winner, coming up a loser tonight at 9.
Exactly. And I know this is enlightening, right? But didn't have time to change everything. So I said something in there about how like Stackhouse had his worst game of the postseason. There in Phoenix, get a call the next day. It's Stackhouse going, what the hell are you talking about? He said, I had 14 points in the final.
Nice.
And I said, I fell on my sword on that one. You're right, man. I didn't see all of those. I was right.
I got a filing deadline.
I said, no excuse. You're right. I'll make it up to you.
Have you heard the Babe story about when they were tricking a certain local reporter back in the day about trading for Daryl Green?
Yes.
That one's great. That one's great. Just whispering in the locker room, like, "Hey, did you hear we're trading for Daryl Green?" And somebody just ran with it as if it was true. Not him. Different reporter. Sorry, we'll go faster. Sorry.
We got to talk about this.
Yeah.
Angriest Jerry Jones has ever been at you?
This was when, after Rich Dalrymple, the longtime PR guy, retired, some stories came out. I did a larger story about how the culture and how this stems from the top. I gave a lot of other examples about what I felt were the bad culture, and basically how it all stemmed from Jerry and Steven and their, the culture they allow out there. It was the off season. It was February. He had a boxing match at AT&T. He was promoting it. I just went out there the day after. It ran on a Sunday. He was there on a Wednesday. Went out just so he could yell at me or whatever. Let the PR staff know, hey, I'm here. I'm not going to talk to him for a story, but I'll be here. And only time this has ever happened, Jerry. He came over. He was talking to somebody else. So I'm standing outside of the circle, letting him have his conversation. That person leaves.
The call over.
He stands, looks at me, just glares at me.
Uh-oh.
Oh.
Doesn't say a word. Just glares. Waiting for me to say something. I don't say anything.
So you just got this impasse going on here.
I said,
yeah.
Jerry, I know you're upset. I'm here if you want to say anything. Looks at me. It felt like about 3 minutes. It was actually probably about 25 seconds. He just glared at me for 25 seconds. Didn't say a word. Went, turns around and walks off. the only time he's ever not. He's yelled at me a few times, but basically everybody I cover has yelled at me a few times.
That's how it goes.
That was the maddest. That was the maddest he's ever been.
Dak or Romo?
I think Dak is built to hold up longer.
That's fair.
And I think you're seeing that now. So I would say Dak for longevity. Their numbers are remarkably similar.
I know, it's creepy, isn't it?
Very, very strange.
Yeah.
I mean, within like 1 and 2 interceptions of the interceptions are a little off, but the touchdown passes, the yards, it's eerily similar.
There's a reason you did that story with Danny White, because we now talk about Dak, how we talk about Romo, which is how we talk about Danny. And because you said, well, let's talk to Danny and see what he has to think.
Yeah, he was great. He's always good.
Awesome. He was awesome. Best Cowboy team that did not win a Super Bowl.
You could probably go back to one of those Landry teams, but I don't want everyone's eyes to glaze over because I know hardly anyone else that old is listening to this. So I would go. I think the Romo team that when they were the number 1 seed,
Lost to the Giants.
And they had destroyed the Giants twice.
07.
Yep. I think that was they were good defensively. They had guys at their peak on the defensive side of the ball. Offensively, they were clicking. That was the lost in the sun a little bit there on the but I think that team, they've had 2 number 1 seeds that haven't won a playoff game, which is very unusual. The other was Dak's first year.
Yeah.
But the fact that was Dak's first year, I lean toward the Romo one because that group had been together a little bit longer.
Yeah. True or false, George Pickens is a Dallas Cowboy next season?
True.
Okay, encouraging.
Optimism. There we go.
I like it.
Last one. We'll fill in the blank here. The Dallas Cowboys will win their next Super Bowl in the year.
I could be wildly optimistic. I'll say 2030.
Ooh.
Okay.
I think people, if you told them that you just got to wait 3 more after the last 20, after the last 30, you just got to sign up for 3 more. People would say, or sorry, 5 more. My math's off here. But they say, just 5 more. I think people would sign up for that right now.
Like Dak's right into the sunset.
Those are eternal optimists, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be right at the end of that. Yeah, Dak could do the John Elway on the way out.
Nice.
Do the 2 at the end.
Oh, right.
Beautiful. I love it.
Dave Moore, thank you for hanging out with us.
Oh, thank you,
Read
guys.
your D Magazine. Tell us where else we can find you.
D Magazine, I'll be on the Ticket on Intentional Groundings every Wednesday night, the occasional random fill-in show during the day, and on the pregame show before every Cowboys game, 2.5 hours before kickoff.
Perfect. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, man.
Thank you, guys.
Well, that was a delight. David Moore, bringing the heat as always. You can find him on D Magazine over at StrongSide. Has a fresh piece on the site in the wake of the Broncos game. He's out of here now, but we're still here at the Haymaker Studios in Frisco. And before we get out of here, we're gonna play a little game, a little question, really. Mike, I don't know if you know this. Back in the day, I was an exceedingly solid high school debater at Jesuit College Prep.
I did not know that.
Yeah. I was.
I didn't know you went to college.
It's a whole other story for a whole other time. But I had the best high school debate coaches on planet Earth. Shout out Dan Lingle. Shout out Trace McFarland. Whenever we'd be on the road, between some tournament, between rounds, we'd be having a meal. Like any good family leaders would, we'd all sit around the table, we'd eat, we'd relax, and we'd talk some shit. So we'd play a little game. It's called Who Do You Hate? And we'd go around the table, and you would just rant about somebody that bothers you that you might see in the debate circuit. It's a very good way for 17-year-old boys to get their frustrations out. Now, I'm an older man now. I'm very calm, very relaxed, even keel. But my compadre right over here, Mike Marshall, he's got some pent-up rage from time to time. I'm going to let it out. So, Mike Marshall, who do you hate?
Yeah, I don't have to do this formally. I just do it for fun. So,
So might as well do it for your entertainment.
Might as well entertain the people.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's a hate as much of a disappointment or a sadness or a lost
That's even worse.
feeling. Yeah, it's worse when I'm disappointed in you. I'm not mad at you.
Just
Son, I'm disappointed. That hurts so much worse, doesn't it?
Who disappoints you, Mike?
So the number one thing that's been ringing in my ears lately is there's just too many damn NFL games on too many days. And what we're doing by spreading every single game across the country or across the globe right now, there's a Sunday morning game. There's a Thursday night game. There's 2 Monday games. There's Sunday all the way through the day. I love football. I love football so freaking much. If I could run a political campaign on football and turn off the robots, I would, and I would win. I would win everything.
I'd vote.
I'd win everything. I would be 3-term president. You'd be 2028 and machine over here. That's how much I love football. I think football is so freaking cool. I think it's our coolest export. I don't like what we're doing to it. I don't like that the NFL is asking for your attention every minute of every day besides Tuesdays and Wednesdays. A lot of this does come from a fantasy angle. If I just can't keep up. I can't keep up with when a game is happening. Are we playing at 8 a.m. this Sunday or not? And what's happening is it's watering down the sport. There's too much going on. And on Sundays, sometimes you'll be sitting there going, all right, it's my Sunday. Time to relax like you did with your dad maybe back in the day. Get up, get some lunch. About 11:30, settle in there, watch a nice slate of noon games, watch a nice slate of 3. Maybe we got a really hot Sunday night game going on that everybody that you know is going to be watching. And you know what? You're not off the fix yet. You get a Monday night game that everybody's going to be watching. I don't have that feeling at all anymore, man. I don't. The noon slate might suck one week. There might be a couple of one-win teams squaring off against each other and only 2 other games on it. And you're asking yourself, why? Well, it's because there's a Thursday game. It's because there's a Sunday morning game. It's because there's 2 Monday night games. So some of these blocks, it's usually the Sunday PM one. It's usually the Sunday 3 p.m. slate sucks so bad. And these international games have not been good. I'm not going to lie to you. There was a game in which a team had negative 10 passing yards. Yeah, it was the Jets. But negative 10 passing yards in an international game. There's the Jaguars' last international game, which you might say they play international all the time. They should adjust. They were down 28-0 in one of these games. They are not adjusting to this international travel. These games are on dud alert the second they get scheduled, no matter who is on it. These games turn to shit so quick, man. And I think it's all coming to a head by these teams getting worn out because there is an extra game to begin with. There are 17 games. Last week was the least competitive weekend, I think, that you can track in terms of scoring margin since, I can't remember which site it was, one of the big data sites has been tracking games. There was one game that was a 1-possession game on the entire slate, Thursday through Monday night. And it was the one you didn't care about, it was the Bengals game. It was a 1-possession game. There was one of them. There's not a competitive game happening. It's crazy, man. We're trying to take over way too much. I have to call balls and strikes on my people, my NFL people, my football friends, the football intelligentsia. Pull it back, man. You don't need Thursday night. You don't need Sunday night before people are awake, or Sunday morning before people are awake. You don't need all day Sunday. You don't need 2 Monday. You don't need Christmas Day. What are we doing? There's just too much. Just because you can eat everything, it doesn't mean you need to. The number one rule in aspirational branding for anybody across the globe is the illusion of exclusivity. That's a marketing trick. That's 101 for you right there. If you think there are fewer of them, of that Hermes bag or that Air Jordan sneaker, you're going to want it more. It's going to make it more special. If I can have it all the time in a dollar store version and a watered down shitty game every other day, that doesn't make me like football more. It makes me feel obligated to watch this crappy Thursday night game. And by the way, I feel like the first decade of Thursday night games sucked. They've gotten fine over like the last 2 or 3 years.
Ish.
Yeah, they sucked. They were always the alert game. Yeah, they threw some cool color rush jerseys on them, so I would tune in every once in a while and go, I've never seen the Vikings wear that color. And then it would be a 10-3 slot fest, right? And it's just, man, I got to call balls and strikes on it. I got to call it like I see it. There's too many NFL games on too many dates. They're eating way more than they need. We got to pull it back, man. I feel like I can't be an intelligent, across the league NFL fan and take in all the games I want to take in a real way, because there's just too many on too many days, and now they're coming after Christmas, and that war is already over. That battle's done.
Yeah, this is supposed to be, you split your parents. Football gets Thanksgiving, basketball gets Christmas. I thought we all understood this, but the NFL just wants to keep encroaching.
Yep.
Yeah, it sucks.
It's rule number one, man. You got to make people want your thing. Got to make people think your thing is cool.
Leave them wanting more.
You got to give them the best version of your product, and that's simply just not what's happening. It's not just that they're encroaching on other people's territory. It's that they're serving you a lesser product. How many times can you serve somebody a shitty meal and expect them to come back? They're going to hit the saturation point at some point. I think these international games, there's still, did you know there's more international games this year?
Of course there are.
There's 2 more.
Yay.
There's 2 more. You better be ready to get up at 7 a.m.
Well, the Cowboys time slots the rest of the year. I think it's like there are 2 normal Sunday slots, and it's a bunch of like, there's a Thursday night, there's a Monday night, there's a Sunday night. They're just get ready for late night games all the time. Yeah. So, anyways, I heard a little hate in your voice. I didn't hear just disappointment. I heard some hate in there.
I mean, I don't hate the NFL or football. Obviously, I love it a lot.
You hate the circumstances.
This is the beginning of it, and it will get worse if someone doesn't step in and go, you know what? Let's treat ourselves as if we are the highest quality brand that could possibly be, and tell people these days, this is your sanctuary. It's like whenever the draft used to be on one day, and you could hang out with,
dude, that was Nirvana
for 12.
Saturday was the best.
Yeah, and now it's turned into How I Met Your Mother Thursday and Friday and Saturday night, like marathon happening. Like, what do we? I don't like it. I don't like any of it, man. I want it to be special. I want it to mean something to sit down on a Sunday and watch football. And to even turn on Red Zone now, if that's part of your habit, and see good games. And that's not happening a lot of when 325 hits on Sunday, I'm flipping over there and I'm going, I don't give a crap about these games. These are bad. Maybe there should be more. Oh, there's only 2? There's 2. Like, 2 bad. All right, we're stretched too thin. We're just stretching ourselves too thin. And I to my football family, let's just cut the shit out. Like, let's chill out just a little bit, okay? Let's bring it back a little. Let's get back to our core, what we're about. Vote for me.
That's a show. I'm Mike. He's Mike. We'll see you next week.